Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a church where who you are and the values you embody in your everyday life are more important than the specifics of what you believe. We gather together to support each other in the responsible search for truth and meaning, support each other in the hard times, and to support the wider community. We have some announcements today that I'm going to go through and some that people are going to elaborate on a little, so please bear with us. Join us for our second Monday lunch. Next lunch will be September 12th at 11:30 at the Olive Garden, 10923 Parkside Drive. If you're planning to attend, please contact Judy Burgett. Her email is in the order of service, or Diane Gray. Same. You're invited to join the Legacy Campaign Committee in helping to reduce Westside's mortgage burden, and Laurie Valliger has an announcement about that.
Good morning. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Next week is the kickoff for our Legacy campaign. As several of you know already, some people are already contributing toward our mortgage paydown, and we'd like to give you more information about the campaign we're going to wage and give you a little lunch next week. So please join us after the service. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. There's a fun fall kids event September 18th, and I think Elizabeth, I know, yeah, Elizabeth, yeah. Except I'm getting old now and my brain's going, but yeah, come ahead.
So after the Legacy of service next week, we're going to have a fall fun kids event, and I'll have more details in the Wednesday newsletter that'll come out, but I'm looking for a few volunteers. If anyone has any teenagers who need volunteer hours, I'd be happy to sign off on those if they come and help me out. And we're also going to be having a scavenger hunt, and so kids may be asking you some questions like, were you born outside of Tennessee? Just easy questions like that. I also need maybe a cornhole board or two. And I'm hoping to do a little service project and have the kids write a postcard to people kids in foster care or prisoners or something like that. I don't know, I'm still thinking, but if you know of an organization that I could get in touch with and deliver cards to, that would be great. And I also see it didn't make it into the order of service, but a reminder that if you want to know a little bit more about Family Promise, we're going to be going to a training session tomorrow down at the day center. It starts at 4, and if you're interested in carpooling, we're going to leave here by 3:30.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, and I think Reverend Carol has something to add to our next Earth Church East Tennessee meeting, so I'll let her make that.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Just an addition to, so we will have Earth Church East Tennessee in a couple weeks on the 25th at 3 o'clock. That's our usual Earth Church. But also for anyone who's interested, on Wednesday, the 21st, which is the actual fall equinox, we're going to have a Mabon celebration here, fire circle outside at 6:30 on Wednesday evening. So anybody's welcome to come to that. That's all.
Thank you, Reverend Carol. Our fall auction, save the date for Saturday, October 15th, outdoors at Westside. Start saving up your saleable items and thinking about services and dinners you will able to be offer, and we'll have some more information out soon. Finance Chair and Harvey still knows how to party. Do you... any questions about the auction or have something to donate, email the auction committee, auction@westsideuuc.org. Check out our newsletter for information on our ongoing religious exploration offerings, thinking about theology, and Thursday evening conversations. This Thursday, Reverend Carol will be hosting our Zoom, and we'll be discussing the 8th principle of the UU Church. The book club will meet September 24th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. The current selection, Very Valentine by Adriana Trigiani. The Zoom link's in the newsletter. And volunteer opportunities. We have spots for greeters and safety volunteers. If you're interested, you can contact Alice Thornton, and her email's in the order of service. Okay, so any other announcements that I've missed?
One more.
Okay.
One more save the date for you all. If you are not already signed up and are interested in attending at any point during the retreat, our annual retreat to Pickett State Park this fall is November 11th through 13th, the second weekend in November. So there'll be more info coming out about that soon, but if you're interested, save the date and let us know. Okay.
Okay, Sandra has our gathering music for us. Thank you, Sandra.
I just want to say a word about the music that I'll be playing. This is in honor of the 9/11 anniversary, and I picked this music because it kind of depicts the gloom and horror that we all felt when it first happened, but then it turns to sort of a triumphant note that I interpret to mean our democracy, although fragile and flawed, is still here. And so it ends on a triumphant note. So it wasn't written for 9/11, but I'm co-opting it for 9/11.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks for reminding us about that, too. I want to make one more announcement, but I'm going to introduce myself first. So, for those of you I have not yet had a chance to meet, first, welcome. It's lovely to see some new faces and some familiar older faces that I haven't seen in a while. I'm Reverend Carol Bedeau. I am privileged to serve here as minister. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I also want to extend a welcome to those who are with us virtually. We have people who attend virtually every week, so we want to make sure that we recognize that they are an important part of this community too. Today, the last announcement I want to make is tentative save the date. Those of you who have been at Westside for a while know that our board president, Carol Coffey, passed a couple weeks ago, and his family is tentatively scheduling his memorial for next Sunday afternoon. So following the picnic, 1:30 or 2 o'clock, that is the tentative time. So if you're able to attend, that would be great. He was a wonderful guy and a big part of this congregation. So we're going to invite our bowl to sound. And this is the way that we sort of close out the business portion of the morning and enter into a more sacred kind of space. Sandra did a great job of helping us kind of move into that already. But as I invite the bowl to sound, I invite you to come fully present into this room. Take a few deep breaths. Notice that you're in a body. Sometimes we get a little in our heads and forget that we're in bodies. Notice that you're in a body. Notice whatever it is that you've brought with you this morning, whatever you're fretting about, concerned about. And just allow yourself to take a couple deeper breaths. As the bowl sounds, you can allow yourself to feel supported, not just by the chair, but by this gathered group of people.
Our chalice lighting reading comes today from Katie Gelfland. It's called The Spirit of Water. We light this chalice as a symbol of reunion. We reunite in this sanctuary and on YouTube to share the flow of our hearts with one another. We gather together in ritual to celebrate our fountains of joy, to hold each other through storms of grief, to guide one another through rapids of transformation, to rest together on ponds of stillness. Together we honor the spirit of water, its many forms, and its life-giving essence.
Thanks, Chris. So, this morning I have some words. This isn't a quick reading, so brace yourselves. It's a slightly lengthy explanation and explication of a reading. We're going to be talking about renaissance and rebirth and renewal this year. Things are changing, and as Sandra's music this morning demonstrated, sometimes change and transformation and reaffirmation come with grief, loss. Sometimes out of grief and loss and change, there is a rebirth of an awareness or a recommitment. That's kind of going to be our theme this year. So transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson was a Unitarian minister. He resigned as a minister in 1832 in order to pursue writing and speaking, and he published his most famous essay, Nature, in 1836. It was a few years later, in 1841, that he published his first collection of essays. And the opening essay in that collection is called History. And it speaks about our common humanity, our shared capacity for insight and innovation, and the importance of each one of us, our individual uniqueness, our thoughts, and our efforts to make the greater whole. So this is the beginning of it. There is one mind common to all individual men. Every man is an inlet to the same. We've got a water image there. Every man is an inlet to the same and to all of the same. What Plato has thought, you may think. What a saint has felt, anyone may feel. What at any time has befallen any person, we can understand. Who hath access to this universal mind is a party to all that is or can be done. For this is the unity. And because we all have the capacity for understanding one another, this is me, not Emerson, because we have the capacity for understanding one another, because we have the capacity for empathy in this shared human drama, then history can educate us about our humanness. And our individual humanness shapes history. Emerson goes on, man is explicable by nothing less than all of his history. Without hurry, without rest, the human spirit goes forth from the beginning to embody every faculty, every thought, every emotion which belongs to it. A man is the whole encyclopedia of all facts. The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn, and Egypt, Greece, Rome, Gaul, Britain, America, all lie folded already in the first person. And me again, if in each of us lies the understanding and the potential for all of humanness, then we each are inherently tied to the experience of the whole. This is how Emerson says it. There is a relation between the hours of our life and the centuries of time. As the air I breathe is drawn from the great repositories of nature, as the light on my book here is yielded by a star 100 millions of miles away, as the poise of my body depends on the equilibrium of centrifugal and centripetal forces, so the hours should be instructed by the ages, and the ages explained by the hours. So in other words, we are in fact truly connected. This is a Unitarian Universalist principle, the seventh principle. We are connected by an interdependent web of existence across all time and space. Subtly or dramatically, our lives intersect with the lives of others. Emerson continues, of the universal mind, each individual is one incarnation. All its properties consist in each. Each new fact in each private experience flashes a light on what great bodies of people have done. And the crises of one life refer to national crises. Every revolution was first a thought in one mind. And when that same thought occurs to another and another, that is the key to an era. Every reform was once a private opinion. And when it shall be a private opinion again and again, it will solve the problems of the age. So today we kick off a year of contemplating what it means to return to one another with our uniqueness, our individuality, and yet together, collectively, create a difference that flows into the course of all humanity and all of history. We have a wonderful opportunity. As Chris invites the offering, I'm going to invite Linda and Yetta to come prepare to play some awesome music for us.
It's now time to take up an offering for the sustenance of the church and for the wider community. Our Share the Plate partner for this quarter is Knox Pride, and 25% of any undesignated funds will go to the Share the Plate partner. So please give generously. Thank you.
Okay, so the tune we're going to be playing is Snake River Reel. If any of you are contra dancers, you may have heard it. It is a popular contra dance tune. You might think because it's the Snake River, it was about Idaho, came from Idaho, but apparently the person the musician to whom it's attributed is actually from Arkansas. So maybe I visited Idaho, or there's probably a Snake River in Arkansas. I'm sure there are snakes in Arkansas.
Thank you, guys. So you're going to hear a lot of RE words this year at Westside. Return, renaissance, renewal, reaffirmation, reawakening. You're going to hear a lot of those words. So the one we're starting with is Renaissance. Most of us know the term Renaissance as a label for a historical period. The period in European history which saw a flourishing of learning and art and science and culture following the Dark and Middle Ages. So it's a French word which literally means rebirth. And it's used generically to describe any time of personal or cultural renewal or innovation. Anne Sullivan Macy, who was the brilliant woman who was able to teach Helen Keller to communicate, said that every Renaissance comes to the world with a cry of the human spirit to be free. When we feel the need to make a leap forward, either because we feel constrained by the limits of our personal or collective lives, or feel trapped in the ways of the past that have become unworkable for the present, sometimes we have the ability to generate new thoughts, new ways of doing things. So 3 years, almost 3 years of pandemic, right? Lots of pandemic constraints. In the midst of great social and political upheaval, that's where we find ourselves. It is a time to generate new thoughts and new ways of doing things while still holding to some of the values that ground and center us. Many of us are feeling the need to see or make some positive changes in our personal lives and around us. And there is, for many of us, a real sense of urgency about it. So specifically when it comes to the collective reality, we may feel like we're not sure how our individual experiences matter. How do we make an impact? How do our personal lives impact the collective or the public? So there's a historian and religious studies scholar named Jeffrey Burton Russell, who, this is a very innovative guy. This is the guy who debunked the myth, which some of us might still believe, I did until I read it, debunked the myth which was created by 19th century anti-Christian writers, including a lot of Unitarians, that medieval people believed the world was flat. How many of us believed the idea that people thought the world was flat? Not so much true. That was a myth. So Jeffrey Burton Russell was the guy who went back and actually did the research and said, actually, that's not actually really an accurate statement. Anyway, so he writes about religious history and is professor emeritus at UC Santa Barbara. And this is what he says about Renaissance or rebirth. Renaissance is not a good historical term, since it implies death and rebirth and great cataclysmic change. There are few abysses or chasms in history. There are merely times when cultural change takes place more quickly and vigorously than at other times. Okay? He might say that now is such a time. And what this implies for me is that rather than waiting and watching for big changes, big cataclysmic changes, we can actually encourage Renaissance by small individual acts, meaningful actions. So, how does that apply to us? How does that apply to you personally? How does that apply to this community? How does that apply to the movement we call Unitarian Universalism? We know that times are changing. We know that they have to. The ways that people communicate are changing. The ways we do business are changing. The ways we get entertainment are changing. The ways we feed ourselves and obtain goods, even those are changing. And with such a time of change, there actually is going to be a lot of conflict. That's inevitable. Change often comes with friction and conflict. We are having arguments, from family squabbles to wars, about what's true, about who knows what's best, who should be in charge. We're using tactics all the way from peaceful resistance to political power mongering to outright lies and deception and corruption, all different strategies to cope with change. to get a handle on things being different than what we thought, what we expected, or what we want. And sometimes we're not always using our strategies in a way that really serves the collective. So as we start this congregational year here, it's kind of like an academic year at most churches. You know, we're not around much during the summer, and then we're around a little bit more during the school year, the church year. I would like to invite us to kick off this year by thinking about our own personal, and our collective commitments to and ideas about Renaissance. What does it mean to have a renewed commitment to yourself, to your relationships, to your values, to the communities you're part of? That's going to mean some change probably here, because when we make a renewed commitment in the face of different circumstances, we usually have to adapt. So, all of us have been adapting, right? We've been adapting by going to Zoom meetings or doing our job part-time from home. And in this building, we have cameras up in the sanctuary that weren't there a couple years ago. We have discussions virtually more often than we have them in person. So some of you may not be familiar with our water communion ritual, so I want to explain it to you. The water communion is a tradition. It's something that expresses the values of this faith tradition, and it's been around for a long time. And the way the water communion works is that it used to be that UU churches didn't have church during the summer. Everybody took the summer off, just like the schools. You took the summer off, and actually there are still a number of churches in New England where that is the case. Where they do not actually meet at all during the summer. And then at the beginning of the school year, the beginning of the church year, everyone would come back together and they would bring a little bit of water from wherever they went to on their summer vacation. So they might bring water and tell about their trip to Niagara Falls, or they might bring, a little bit of water from the lake from, in Tellico, where they spent their time this summer. Or they might bring, somebody would bring water from the tap at their grandmother's house where they visited. But people would actually physically bring water. That's gotten harder and harder. We tend not to remember to do that. And this is true in many congregations. So we've gradually started saying, we've got symbolic water of the places you went. And another tradition was that frequently water communions were kind of like the slideshow at your aunt's house after summer vacation, right? Where people told about everything they did. And it was about, this is what I did, and here I'm back. Especially here at Westside, that is really changing. Over the last few years, we have been more and more talking about values when we come back together. Not where did you go, where did I go, but who are we? Why are we coming together in the first place? What is it that we choose to come together as a community to focus on, to create, to build, to make in the world? Why are we here? So today we're going to continue that. Now, you don't necessarily have to come up and pour water into the vase. That is the ritual. The ritual is people come up, they pour a little water in the collective vase, and they say a word or two. So you're welcome to do that if you've been here 1,000 times or if this is your first time. And you're also welcome to just do it quietly in your seat. But I'm going to ask you to start with this question. Why are you here today? What does coming through the door of this place represent to you that was important enough to get you out of bed today and dressed nice enough to go in public, or that was enough to get you out of bed in your slippers to your computer in your living room if you're here virtually, right? Because if you're here virtually, you did something to get here. So it's not just the people physically in this room, it's also the people who are watching. Why? Think about that for just a second. And think about a word or two. So we're not going to give travel narratives when we come up this morning. We're going to say a word or two. like maybe it's learning, or connection, or justice, or hope, or community, or friends, or change, or whatever it is. Think about it for a second. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask Chris to be the keeper of the microphone. So as people come up, I invite you to take the microphone and just say a word or two about what it is that makes it worthwhile to you to show up today. Because as we change and adapt to face a changing world and figuring out what we're going to do, the first thing we have to know is why we want to do it in the first place. So, and I believe, Sandra, you can play a little music for us while we do this. I invite you to come up as you would like. You can say a word or two into the microphone, and then take a little bit of water and pour it into the collective vase.
I'm very unhappy about the things that Carol has just said. This is my community. This is where I know I can be supported. This is where I know I can be understood. And I'm a longtime UU. I look forward to the yearly ritual of sharing with each other what we have done for our summer. And I think taking that away is really taking away a lot of the richness of our community. So I came prepared to share water, and I'm going to do that. My water is from the hose out in the backyard, because I've spent many a pleasant evening here by myself watering the morning glories so that they will survive. So this water is from the hose that I've used many times this summer.
I came to see Judy's morning glories and the rest of my friends.
I'm Linda Alms, and I brought rain. Rain is so important to me as a former Texan, and I think it is so important for all of us. It replenishes our earth. While I'm here today, companionship, acceptance, and love.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth, and I have water from Mary Isaac and David Bechtel's dock, where I spent enough time to keep my soul happy this summer. I swam laps, and I took my noodle and I just bobbed around, and sometimes with my friend Ann, and sometimes just by myself. And I got a lot of serenity from being in the water and looking at the blue sky. And I get a lot of serenity from being here also.
I'm from out of town, and I came to visit my mom, and we came together to connect with people here and share in the spiritual journey.
I came today for opportunity for growth.
Well, my name is Ellen. I came today for most of these things that all these other people have mentioned, but especially community and acceptance and being in a group of people who are not necessarily like-minded, but are willing to come together.
Hi, I'm Gretchen, and as a lifelong UU, the Water Communion has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and it is something that I have always participated in when I could, and so this is my recommitment to that.
Anybody else want to be brave? All right, I'm going to pour some water in here. I'm going to pour some water in for all the thoughts about values. Even Judy, I heard tradition. Tradition was the value I heard you expressing. Tradition, right? Tradition, and traditions adapt and shift, but tradition matters. Tradition matters. Tradition, courage, acceptance. These are some of the things I heard and some of the things you said, and also for all those things that people haven't said. For the things that you are thinking or feeling that you're not quite sure how to articulate or not comfortable articulating in front of a crowd. Like some of you might be thinking, I came here to be invisible and check you people out. Didn't come here to stand in front of everybody and talk. So the thing about Unitarian Universalist communities is we get to include all of it. That's one of the wonderful things about Unitarian Universalism. This is a community where you can come up and say, Minister, I am mad at you this morning right now. That's allowed. It's well, don't do it every week, but it's welcomed who you are and where you are right this morning. And what's your truth actually matters to the collective. One of the beauties of Unitarian Universalism is it is an experiment in practicing allowing difference. This ritual is really a container for saying we can all be coming from different places, and yet we can all still contribute together to a common good, to a whole that is more than the sum of its parts. That's one of the beauties of this tradition. So, it takes courage to come up front. It takes courage to say, as Judy did, I'm not very happy with you right now, Carol. It takes courage to be vulnerable in a communal space. It takes courage to do all sorts of things. The choir is going to sing a song for us that's about having the courage to step in and do things differently, to step into the collective and make changes. So I'm going to invite the choir to come up.
God's gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. The leader looks like an Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. It looks like the band that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
So, us singing that song is a testament to adaptation. Okay? So, that song is rich in tradition. We use it a lot at our water communions, but of course, a lot of the theology in it isn't really necessarily the theology of a lot of people in the room. And yet we adapt it for our uses. So I want to tell you a little bit about that song. It carries the weight of a lot of cultural history. And this is really an example of how people adapt and change that which was before and make it new for new purposes. So the song really speaks about ancient people, the Israelites leaving bondage in Egypt. It's a biblical song. It's a song that's about biblical stories. And it really is meant to evoke sort of this tradition of liberation and courage and escaping bondage from the past and moving into liberation. Okay, then it's a song that was used by African American people to communicate actual paths out of slavery. So we know that this particular song, like the wade in the water, actually means go in the river to have make sure that your path, your tracks, can't be tracked by dogs. That's how it was used during the 19th century in the Civil War era and in the slavery era, right? So this concept of the Israelites coming out of bondage in Egypt was then adapted by people to say, what does that mean for us? How can we use those images? How can we use those traditions, those traditional stories, and adapt them to our story, which is about moving forward, moving into a new time, change. How do we escape things or move out of things that are trapping us, limiting us, help us be more free? So this song, it echoes with layers and layers and layers of tradition. It reminds people who've been in this room over many years of times we've sung it before, of other situations in which we've sung it. It may remind you, maybe if you ever attended a different kind of church, of those experiences when you were in a different stage of your life. Every time any of us encounter one another, every time we interact, we are actually kind of stepping into the river of history, and we're experiencing it in a certain way that is timeless, right? And yet it's new every time. It's never the same twice, right? So this year, here, our goal as a community is to somehow bring tradition and newness together, to somehow hold the values that we love and treasure and also adapt, renew, recommit in a new way, in ways that are fresh, that give us life and vitality, but that are also rooted and centered in deep values that we can connect to the past. So, what we want to do is wade into the metaphorical water of the collective experience that we share as humans, connected to the past and also to the future. We need to do that with a sense of our own capacity for making an impact, for influencing the whole, while also holding a deep reverence for all that has come before us and a deep sense of the potential ahead of us for things we've never seen before, things that are unfamiliar to us, things that we don't know yet. So each week we extinguish our chalice, which is the symbol of the tradition. And as we extinguish the chalice, we say these words. We extinguish this flame, but we keep alive that light in ourselves of seeking for truth, the warmth of community coming together, and the fire of commitment, the fire of passion for being agents of transformative change. So one of the changes we have made in our worship services lately, and Sandra, you get credit for this because you were the one who said, you need to keep doing that, Carol. One week, we often say, go in peace, right? That's the traditional thing you say, go in peace. And one week I said, go in peace and passion. And Sandra said, I like that. You should keep doing that. So now, that's the new tradition. That's going to be our new tradition. So as I extinguish the chalice, I encourage you to go in peace and passion.